Good evening. You are listening to Silent Waves Radio, and I am Alex Mercer. We are interrupting our regular programming at this hour because we are receiving initial, unconfirmed reports of a major incident in the South Pacific. What we know right now is limited, and I want to be precise about that. A commercial passenger aircraft operating as Meridian Pacific Flight 7 on a route between Auckland, New Zealand, and Nadi, Fiji, has failed to make contact with air traffic control at Nadi International Airport for what ground staff are describing as a period now exceeding 40 minutes. Meridian Pacific is a mid-sized regional carrier based in Sydney, Australia. The aircraft in question is reported to be an Airbus A330 with a maximum passenger capacity in the range of 290 seats. We do not yet have a confirmed passenger count for this particular flight. Radar contact was reportedly lost approximately 260 nautical miles northeast of Auckland, placing the last known position somewhere in the central Tasman Sea corridor approaching the Fijian archipelago. The New Zealand Civil Aviation Authority has been notified, and we understand the Rescue Coordination Center. New Zealand has begun initial response procedures. I want to stress again, this is early. We do not know what has happened to this aircraft. We do not know if there are survivors. We are going to stay on this story throughout the evening, and I will be joined, as always, by my colleague Sierra Lane. Sierra, what are you hearing from your sources at this hour?
Alex, thank you. And good evening to all of you listening. I want to echo what Alex said. This is early, and I know many of you may be tuning in right now with a knot in your stomach, perhaps because you have someone you love who travels that corridor, or because you've flown that route yourself. What I can tell you is that the phone lines at Meridian Pacific's Customer Service Center in Sydney have reportedly been overwhelmed in the last 20 minutes since word of this first circulated on social media. A spokesperson for the airline has not yet made a public statement, but we are told one is being prepared. What I find significant from a human standpoint is the timing. This is a daytime flight on a Wednesday. That corridor between Auckland and Nadi is traveled by families, by business people, by tourists heading to Fiji for holiday, by students studying abroad. The demographic breadth of a flight like this matters because it means that across New Zealand, across Australia, across Fiji, across the Pacific Island communities that bridge those nations, there are people right now watching their phones and their televisions and their radios waiting for their families to check in. That silence, that absence of a confirmation that someone landed safely, is one of the most particular kinds of fear a human being can experience, and we are sitting in the middle of that silence with all of you right now.
We have a development coming in. Rescue Coordination Center New Zealand, which we'll refer to as RCCNZ throughout our coverage, has formally activated a distress phase response for Meridian Pacific Flight 7. This is a procedural escalation. A distress phase is declared when an aircraft is known or believed to be in serious and imminent danger. This is a step beyond what's called an alert phase, which was presumably already in effect. This tells us that the RCCNZ has determined there is sufficient cause to treat this as an active emergency rather than a communications anomaly. P-3 Orion Maritime Patrol aircraft from the Royal New Zealand Air Force are being scrambled from RNZ AF Base Ohakea, and an HMNZS vessel that was already conducting exercises in the Tasman region has been diverted toward the last known coordinates. I also want to note something that came through our technical desk a moment ago. Weather data for the relevant sector at the time of contact loss, and this is approximately 3 hours ago, accounting for the timeline, shows a region of unusual atmospheric instability, not a conventional storm cell. Something our meteorological correspondent described to me off-air as, and I'm quoting here, a pressure anomaly of a type I haven't seen charted in that region. We're working to get that person on air shortly to explain what that means.
While Alex continues to track the search and rescue activation, I want to share something that came in through our listener text line just a few minutes ago. This is from a listener who identifies herself as Donna, based in Christchurch, New Zealand. She writes, "My daughter works as a flight attendant for Meridian Pacific. I don't know if she was rostered on this flight. I can't reach anyone from the airline. I'm sitting here with her photograph in my hands. Please, if anyone knows anything, please." Donna, we hear you. We are here with you. We cannot tell you that everything is going to be all right because we don't know that yet. What we can tell you is that every official resource that should be mobilizing right now is mobilizing, and we will tell you everything we know the moment we know it. That listener message is the human reality behind every number and every coordinate that Alex and I will be discussing over the next several hours. Each data point is someone's Donna.
I want to update the timeline. We are now approximately 47 minutes past the point at which Meridian Pacific Flight 7 failed to make its scheduled position report over the Fijian Flight Information Region boundary. Position reports on this route are required at intervals consistent with oceanic tracking procedures, and the failure to make even an emergency radio call on the international distress frequency, 121.5 megahertz, is considered significant by aviation professionals. Our aviation analyst, who we're working to connect to the broadcast now, has noted that the A330 aircraft type is equipped with multiple redundant communication systems, including high-frequency radio, satellite data link, and an emergency locator transmitter that should, under normal circumstances, activate automatically upon impact with water. The absence of any ELT signal at this stage is something investigators and search crews will be paying close attention to. It does not necessarily mean the signal isn't transmitting. ELT signals in open ocean environments can be intermittent and are subject to satellite coverage windows, but it is a detail worth noting.
Alex, we have something just coming in that I think changes the character of this broadcast significantly. We are receiving, and again, we are working to verify this, we are receiving reports from a fishing vessel operating in the South Pacific, approximately 240 nautical miles northeast of Auckland. The vessel, which we are told is a commercial fishing boat registered in the Cook Islands, has reported seeing debris in the water and has radioed in the position. More importantly, and I want to stress we cannot confirm this, more importantly, they are reporting that they may have retrieved a survivor from the water. One person, alive. I'm going to let that sit for a moment. Because if this is accurate, then somewhere in the South Pacific right now, there is a person who was on that airplane, who went through whatever happened, and who is alive. The fishing vessel's communication has been relayed through the Rescue Coordination Center. We do not have a name. We do not have the condition of this individual. We do not know how they came to be in the water. But RCCNZ has confirmed to us in the last 60 seconds that they are aware of and responding to this report. The HMNZS vessel that was diverted is now being redirected to the coordinates provided by the fishing vessel.
Confirming what Sierra just reported. RCCNZ is treating the report from the Cook Islands registered fishing vessel as credible. The vessel is identified as the Aramona, and the master of that vessel has reportedly maintained radio contact with RCCNZ since first transmitting. The coordinates provided place the debris field approximately 31 nautical miles south-southwest of the last transponder position, recorded for Meridian Pacific Flight 7. That's a meaningful correlation, and it's why RCCNZ is moving assets toward that position with urgency. Now, I also want to begin addressing something that our newsroom has been monitoring since before this broadcast began, because it may or may not be connected to the fate of this aircraft, and I think our listeners deserve to hear it. In the last 2 hours, there have been scattered seismic reports from the Tonga region. The Tonga Meteorological Service issued a low-level advisory approximately 90 minutes ago regarding unusual ocean surface behavior near the northern islands. Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has not issued a warning. But the presence of seismic activity in the general Pacific Basin, combined with the meteorological anomaly our team flagged, combined with the loss of this aircraft, constitutes a pattern that our newsroom is taking seriously. These may be entirely coincidental, But coincidences in aviation disasters and geophysical events are always worth examining.
I want to stay human scale for a moment because I think it's important. We're hearing the word debris field. And for most people listening, that phrase is abstract. Let me tell you what it means in practice. It means pieces of an airplane floating in the South Pacific. It means luggage and life vests and seat cushions and things that people packed in their bags this morning before they got on a plane. It means the physical evidence of a catastrophic structural failure somewhere between the sky and the ocean. And somewhere in and around that debris field, or perhaps beyond it, which is how one survivor could have been retrieved while no emergency signals were detected at the main site, somewhere in that debris is the story of what happened to those people. And we do not know that story yet. We know only that one person, according to reports we cannot yet fully verify, made it through. And that matters enormously, because survivors carry testimony. They carry information that no instrument or satellite can provide. They can tell us what they saw.
We're going to move into a second hour of coverage now. We're approximately 90 minutes into this developing story as we track it at Silent Waves Radio. We have a significant update. HMNZS Aotearoa, the New Zealand naval replenishment vessel, has arrived within visual range of the coordinates provided by the Aramona. A helicopter launched from the vessel has made visual confirmation of debris in the water, consistent with the wreckage of a large commercial aircraft. They are also confirming the presence of one survivor, who has been recovered from the water by personnel from the Aramona and is being transferred to the naval vessel via helicopter for immediate medical attention. This person, gender and identity still unconfirmed, was reportedly found clinging to a section of what investigators believe may be a wing fairing or door panel. They were conscious and responsive at the time of recovery, according to initial reports relayed through RCCNZ. I want to be clinical about what conscious and responsive means medically. It means they were awake and able to respond to basic questions. It does not tell us their physical condition in detail. Hypothermia is the primary concern in these circumstances. Water temperature in that region of the South Pacific in the current season is estimated at approximately 18 to 19 degrees Celsius, cold enough to cause serious hypothermia within 1 to 2 hours of immersion.
Alex, while you were speaking, I received a text from our producer. We have received, through a connection I am not going to identify for privacy reasons, a partial transcript of the initial communication between the survivor and rescue personnel on the Aramona. And I want to read it to you carefully, because it is both remarkable and deeply significant. According to this partial transcript, when rescue personnel first reached this person and asked if they were injured, the response was, and I'm reading directly, my legs. I don't know about my legs. Something hit the plane. From below. The whole plane shook like it was grabbed. End quote. Rescue personnel then asked if the person could tell them their name. The response given was a first name. Marcus. That is all we have. Marcus. Male appears to be an adult, conscious enough to communicate, and describing the aircraft experiencing some kind of violent external force from below. Something hit the plane from below. That is an extraordinary statement, and I want to be careful about how much weight we assign to it. A survivor in the immediate aftermath of a catastrophic accident, hypothermic, potentially injured, certainly traumatized, may not be providing a precisely accurate physical description of events. But it is the first human testimony we have, and it will matter enormously to investigators.
That statement is significant for several reasons, and I want to walk through them carefully. If Marcus, our survivor, perceived the aircraft as being struck from below, there are several physical phenomena that could be consistent with that perception. The first is a severe clear air turbulence event, or a microburst scale atmospheric disturbance, which could feel to passengers like a sudden and violent upward or downward force. The second, and I want to be careful here, the second is a pressure wave from below, specifically a wave of the kind that can emanate from a submarine volcanic event or a large-scale underwater seismic rupture. Such a pressure wave traveling through the ocean surface and into the overlying atmosphere has been documented though rarely, in the context of major undersea events. The Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai eruption in 2022 produced atmospheric pressure waves that circled the globe multiple times. A localized version of such an event, directly beneath or adjacent to an aircraft's flight path, could potentially produce exactly the kind of sensation this survivor is describing. I am not saying that is what happened. I am saying it is consistent with the description and consistent with the seismic reports we flagged earlier.
We have a statement from the New Zealand Prime Minister's office, which I'll read in full. Quote, "The New Zealand government is aware of and deeply concerned by the disappearance of Meridian Pacific Flight 7. We extend our thoughts to the passengers and crew on board and to their families, who we know are suffering profound uncertainty at this moment. New Zealand's full maritime and aerial search and rescue capabilities are being deployed. We are in contact with our counterparts in Australia, Fiji, and the broader Pacific region. We will provide further information as it becomes available. This is a priority for our government." End quote. That statement is measured and appropriate for the current phase of the event. What it tells us in official terms is that this has reached the level of prime ministerial awareness, which is both expected and significant. It also signals regional coordination. Australia and Fiji are both named, meaning this is no longer a purely bilateral response.
I need to pause our discussion of the flight and bring in something that is happening simultaneously and that I believe may be directly connected. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, which had not issued any advisory as of 40 minutes ago, has now issued a tsunami watch for the following areas: the northern islands of Tonga, the southern islands of Fiji, Niue, and the southern Cook Islands. A watch, for listeners unfamiliar with the terminology, is a step below a warning. It means that conditions exist or are developing that could produce a tsunami, and that coastal communities in the watch zone should be prepared to move to higher ground upon further notice. The watch was triggered by seismic data indicating a submarine event of significant magnitude in the region of the northern Tonga Arc. I want to read the preliminary magnitude, 7.9. That is the initial estimate from the United States Geological Survey. Earthquake magnitudes in the initial hours after an event are subject to revision. They can go up or they can go down. A 7.9 in a submarine environment is sufficient to generate tsunamis. It is not automatically catastrophic in terms of wave height. That depends heavily on the specific geological mechanics of the rupture. But it is serious, and it is now an official watch-level event. And I want to say plainly, the timing relative to the disappearance of Meridian Pacific Flight 7 is no longer something we can treat as coincidental.
Let me bring in some immediate human consequence from the watch zone, because while Alex is tracking the geophysical data, people in Tonga and Fiji right now are hearing sirens. I am receiving messages from listeners in those regions. We have a strong Pacific listener base at Silent Waves Radio, and I want to share a couple of them. A listener from Nuku'alofa, the capital of Tonga, writes, "We heard the alarm 15 minutes ago. My husband is loading the children into the car. We are going to high ground. The ocean looks strange. It's pulling back. I've seen videos of this before. Please tell us what's happening." And from a listener in Lautoka, Fiji's second city. "Sirens are going. Some people are leaving. Some people don't know what to do. There are tourists on the beach who don't understand the warnings. Local people are trying to get them to come with us." These are real people right now in the middle of this event. The woman in Nuku'alofa is right. A retreating ocean is one of the warning signs of an incoming tsunami. Her instinct to go to high ground is correct. And the situation in Lautoka points to something that emergency managers in Pacific Island nations have struggled with for decades: the uneven distribution of awareness between local communities who have grown up with tsunami culture and visitors who have not.
We are now receiving an updated seismic estimate. I want to read this precisely. The USGS has revised the magnitude of the submarine event to 8.6. That is a significant upward revision. For reference, the 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake that triggered the Boxing Day tsunamis was initially estimated at 9.0. and 8.6 is among the largest seismic events recorded in recent decades. At this magnitude, the tsunami generating potential is substantially elevated. The rupture is being located at approximately 170 degrees west longitude, 18 degrees south latitude, which places it in the northern Tonga Arc region, in the vicinity of the trench system that runs northeast toward the Kermadec Islands. The PTWC has now upgraded the tsunami watch to a tsunami warning for Tonga, Fiji, Niue, the Cook Islands, and portions of Samoa. A watch has been extended to include New Zealand's North Island coast, the southern coast of Vanuatu, and the northernmost coastal regions of New Zealand's South Island. This is a rapidly escalating geophysical event. We're also now receiving the first reports from the Tongan Meteorological Service that the ocean has already receded from several northern beaches in Tonga's Ha'apai group. Recession of the ocean is almost always a precursor sign of incoming wave energy.
I'm going to step back from the geophysical reporting for just a moment to make sure we're speaking clearly to anyone who is in a coastal area and listening to this broadcast right now. If you are in Tonga, Fiji, Samoa, Niue, the Cook Islands, Vanuatu, or on the coast of New Zealand's North Island, and you have not yet moved to higher ground, please do so now. Do not wait for a wave. Do not go to the beach to see what is happening. The retreat of the ocean is your signal. Move inland, move uphill, and stay there until you receive an official all clear. Take your family, take essential documents if you can do so quickly, and move. Alex, I know we have more technical information coming in, but I needed to stop and say that clearly.
Sierra is absolutely right, and I'm glad she said it. We'll continue to interrupt our analytical coverage with any direct safety guidance that our listeners in the affected zone need. Now, moving to the broader picture as we approach the 2-hour mark of our coverage. We are in contact with our Pacific correspondent, who is based in Auckland. The correspondent is reporting that the first waves have made landfall on the northern Tongan Islands, specifically on the island of Vava'u and the Ha'apai group. Initial wave heights are being estimated, and again, these are estimates from early reports, not confirmed survey measurements, at somewhere between 4 and 7 meters on the northern coasts of these islands. For context, a 4-meter wave is roughly as tall as a 2-story building. A 7-meter wave is devastating. The Ha'apai group of islands has an average elevation above sea level of roughly 2 to 3 meters across much of its habitable land. That means, mathematically, that parts of Ha'apai may be entirely inundated. The population of Ha'apai is approximately 11,000 people. Communications from Ha'apai have gone dark in the last 8 minutes.
Communications going dark. That phrase is becoming the defining phrase of this broadcast so far. We lost Marcus. We lost contact with Flight 7. We have now lost communications from Ha'apai. And as these darkened zones accumulate, I think what we're watching is the boundary of a catastrophe becoming visible in the shape of what we can no longer hear. Each silence is a place where something terrible may be happening, and where we cannot yet see inside. Our listener from Nuku'alofa has stopped sending messages. I don't know what that means. It may mean she found safety and doesn't have signal. It may mean something else. I'm going to keep trying to reach her. And while I do, I want to share 2 more listener messages because our text line has not gone dark. It is full. A listener writing from Suva, Fiji, the capital. The sirens have been going for 20 minutes. We are on higher ground. I can see the harbor from here. The ships are moving strangely. People are crying. My neighbor is praying. We are all watching the water. And a listener from Wellington, New Zealand. I'm glued to your broadcast. My cousins are in Tonga. I can't reach them. I'm sitting here shaking. Please don't stop broadcasting. We are not stopping. We are here.
The picture is expanding quickly, and I want to give our listeners a structured sense of the geography of this event as it's developing. At its core, we have a seismic rupture of 8.6 magnitude in the northern Tonga Arc, one of the most seismically active subduction zones on the planet. This zone is where the Pacific plate is being driven underneath the Australian plate. When that process releases energy suddenly, it doesn't just shake the ground, it displaces water above the rupture zone in 3 dimensions. The seafloor can drop or rise by several meters over an area of hundreds of square kilometers. The water above that seafloor displacement moves outward as a tsunami wave train that can travel across an ocean basin at the speed of a commercial aircraft, roughly 800 kilometers per hour in deep water. From the rupture zone, that wave energy is radiating outward. To the west, Fiji, Vanuatu. To the south, New Zealand. To the east, the Cook Islands and beyond. To the north, Samoa and eventually Hawaii, though Hawaii is more than 4,000 kilometers away and has time. Our RNZAFP-3. Orion aircraft, originally searching for Flight 7, has now been redirected to conduct coastal surveillance of the affected islands and relay what they observe. That data is beginning to come in, and it is sobering.
The RNZAF Orion report, I'm reading from a summary just handed to me, confirms extensive inundation of the Ha'apai group. The low-lying central islands of Ha'apai are described as, and I'm quoting from the summary, largely below the water surface. The Orion crew is reporting that they can see building rooftops in shallow water. They are seeing debris, structural debris, not aviation debris, floating over areas that were inhabited land 20 minutes ago. They are not yet reporting confirmed survivorship numbers from this area. They are reporting that they can see people on high points, on hills, on rooftops that are still above water, people waving, people in the water swimming toward anything they can reach. The crew of the Orion has radioed for every maritime asset in the region to converge on these coordinates. Alex, the Ha'apai group has a population of 11,000 people, you said. Some of those people are on those rooftops right now.
We're now hearing from emergency management officials in Fiji. The Fiji National Disaster Management Office has issued a red alert for the entire Fijian archipelago. Red alert is their highest level. The first wave reached the northern Fijian islands, Vanuatu specifically, approximately 14 minutes ago. Initial reports from communities on Vanuatu's northern coast are describing waves of 3 to 5 meters. Vanuatu has higher terrain than Ha'apai. The interior highlands are well above sea level and would provide refuge for people who could reach them. But Vanuatu's coastal settlements, its fishing villages, its northern agricultural areas, are at acute risk. The national capital of Fiji, Suva, is on the southeastern coast of the main island of Viti Levu and has slightly more natural protection. But the NDMO is not ruling out significant wave arrival at Suva. The listener we heard from in Suva, watching the harbor, is doing the right thing by being on high ground. Fiji's population is approximately 900,000 people. A significant portion lives within a kilometer of the coast. The scale of potential displacement in Fiji alone is difficult to comprehend in real time.
I want to talk about what evacuation actually looks like in a Pacific Island nation in the middle of a disaster event. Because I think listeners in large continental countries may have a mental image that doesn't quite apply. In much of the Pacific, the road networks are limited. There are islands where there is one road. There are communities where the only vehicle is a single truck that belongs to the local church. Higher ground may be only a kilometer away, but if you are elderly, if you are carrying a child, if you are injured, if it is nighttime, and it was nighttime in Tonga when this hit, that kilometer is not straightforward. And the tsunami warning, for all its importance, came with very little lead time. The PTWC did not issue a warning until after the wave was already generated. These are the built-in limitations of our warning systems. We improve them after every event, and they save tens of thousands of lives, but they are not perfect. For some of the smaller, more isolated northern Tongan islands, there may have been 15 minutes between the first tremors and the first waves. Some of those people had 15 minutes.
We are now 2 hours and approximately 20 minutes into this broadcast. Marcus, the survivor of Meridian Pacific Flight 7, has been transferred to the HMNZS Aotearoa and is receiving medical care. We are being told by RCCNZ that his condition is described as serious but stable. Serious but stable is a medical categorization that typically means This person is alive, and we believe they will remain alive, but they have significant injuries or physiological instability that requires active medical management. We do not yet have any further testimony from Marcus, and it would be inappropriate to attempt to interview him in his current condition. What we do know is that investigators from the New Zealand Transport Accident Investigation Commission and the Australian Transport Safety Bureau are already in contact with the vessel by radio, and that formal testimony collection will begin as soon as his medical team clears it. Search and rescue aircraft are continuing to comb the debris field for any additional survivors. To this point, and it has now been over 2 hours since we believe the aircraft entered the water, Marcus is the only survivor found. A search team has identified what they believe is the main fuselage section beneath approximately 30 meters of water. That depth is within the operational range of remotely operated vehicles, though deploying ROVs will take time.
2 hours into a search, and the word survivor is still singular. There were people on that plane? We don't have a confirmed passenger manifest yet. Meridian Pacific has not released one publicly, though they are legally required to have provided one to New Zealand's Civil Aviation Authority. What we know is that the A330 typically operates at high load factors on the Fiji route, particularly midweek. When I think about that plane and about the people on it, I think about the ordinary texture of a Wednesday afternoon flight. People with their headphones in, people reading paperwork, someone asleep against the window, a couple arguing quietly about which seat they reserved, children in their seats, bored, asking for snacks. And then, Marcus said it, something from below, and whatever came next. We are going to honor those people throughout this broadcast by not making them abstract. They were people in the ordinary middle of a day.
Confirmed casualty information is beginning to come in from Tonga. The Tongan National Emergency Management Office has transmitted initial reports through satellite communication. Their primary land-based telecommunications have been disrupted. The reports are fragmentary and almost certainly incomplete, but I'm going to share what we have. On the island of Vava'u, which is more elevated than Ha'apai, and had somewhat more time and higher ground available, search and rescue teams are reporting confirmed fatalities in coastal settlements of the northern shore. The number provided is 47 confirmed dead at this stage, with that number explicitly flagged as early and expected to rise. For the Ha'apai group, no confirmed fatality count is available because search and rescue teams have not yet been able to adequately assess the area. There are believed to be hundreds of people still unaccounted for in Ha'apai. That is the word being used in the official transmission. Hundreds. In Fiji, the NDMO is reporting confirmed deaths on northern Vanuatu with an initial count of 23, again flagged as early and incomplete. The Samoa Meteorological Division is reporting that waves of 2 to 3 meters have now reached Savaii, Samoa's largest island. Savaii has higher elevation terrain and a population of around 50,000. The waves there appear to be somewhat diminished relative to the Tongan and Fijian impacts, but they are far from negligible.
I'm now receiving something remarkable. Through our network of Pacific contacts, we have obtained a voice message that was recorded, apparently by accident, on a mobile phone in Ha'apai during the wave's arrival. I need to be careful about how I handle this. The message has been shared with us by a contact in Tonga who received it from a family member. I am not going to play the recording, so we are a radio broadcast, and the recording contains sounds I do not believe it is appropriate to broadcast. But I am going to describe what you can hear in it, because it is a document of what happened in that community. You can hear a group of people, adults and children together, running. You can hear someone, a woman, repeating a name in a language that is Tongan. And you can hear the water. It arrives as a sound before it arrives as a visual, a deep, sustained roar that grows and then fills the entire recording. And then there are voices still. Above it, still calling, still present. That recording is 43 seconds long, and we don't know what happened to the people in it.
The USGS has issued a revised tectonic assessment of the rupture event. I want to give our listeners the key conclusion, which is significant. The revised assessment describes this as a compound rupture, meaning it was not a single break along a single fault segment, but rather a cascade of ruptures along connected segments of the Tonga-Kermadec arc system. The total rupture length is estimated at approximately 400 kilometers. This is relevant for several reasons. First, it explains the unusually large revised magnitude. Compound ruptures can transfer and compound energy in ways that individual ruptures cannot. Second, it has implications for aftershocks, which we can expect to continue for weeks to months, and which will themselves be capable of generating additional wave events. Third, and this is the piece I want to dwell on for a moment, the USGS assessment includes a note about potential seafloor deformation along the rupture corridor. Specifically, there is evidence consistent with vertical subsidence of the seafloor in a zone that extends northward from the initial rupture point toward the southern Kermadec region. Subsidence. The seafloor is sinking, and in the vicinity of the Tonga Arc, there are islands that sit on exactly that kind of submarine platform. I am not going to speculate beyond what the USGS has provided, but I am going to flag that fact and what it may mean for islands in that zone.
Alex, while you were speaking, I received a message from our correspondent in Auckland, who has been monitoring communications from the outer Tongan Islands. He is telling me that Tafahi Island, which sits in the far northern Tonga group, it is a small, steep, volcanic island with a population of around 400 people. Tafahi has stopped transmitting. They had radio communication for the first period after the wave arrived. Reports from Tafahi initially described significant coastal damage, but a functional hilltop community. That communication stopped 11 minutes ago. Our correspondent says he doesn't know why. He's trying to reach them through every frequency available. And there is a second island, Niuataputapu, population approximately 1,000, that is reporting something that I want to read to you carefully. A report relayed through the Tongan Meteorological Service says, and I'm reading, northern coast of Niuataputapu no longer visible. Ground survey required to assess. Possible ongoing subsidence of coastal platform. That phrase, possible ongoing subsidence of coastal platform, is consistent with what Alex just described about the USGS seafloor assessment. If the seafloor is sinking in this region, the islands that sit on top of it may be sinking with it.
We are approaching the 3-hour mark of our coverage. I want to organize what we know. The casualty count, as of the most recent official reports, stands at an aggregate estimated minimum of 700 confirmed dead across Tonga and Fiji, with the number in Tonga heavily concentrated in the Ha'apai group, where full assessment is still not possible. The figure of 700 is explicitly characterized by emergency officials as a floor, not a ceiling. The feared total in Ha'apai alone, based on population exposure and observed inundation, is in the thousands. We have one survivor from Meridian Pacific Flight 7, condition serious but stable. We have a potential ongoing geological subsidence event affecting parts of the northern Tonga island chain. We have tsunami waves that have now been confirmed as reaching Samoa, the Cook Islands, and, as of 12 minutes ago, the first minor wave arrivals have been detected on monitoring buoys along the northeast coast of New Zealand. New Zealand is elevating its coastal alert status for the Northland and Coromandel regions. Power outages have been reported across much of Tonga and in the northern districts of Vanuatu in Fiji. Nadi International Airport, which was our flight's intended destination, has been closed due to an inundation threat and is currently non-operational. That closure affects all incoming and outgoing flights and has humanitarian implications for getting aid and personnel into the region.
Nadi Airport closing matters enormously for what comes next, and I want to explain why to listeners who may not immediately see the connection. When a disaster of this scale occurs in a remote island region, the airport is the lifeline. It's how medical personnel get in. It's how urgent supplies get in. It's how international response teams get in. When that lifeline is severed, Everything that needs to go in by air now has to find an alternative, a military airstrip, a grass runway, a cleared field. And everything that needs to come out, the injured, the critically ill, the elderly requiring medical care, is also delayed. Fiji is functioning right now as an aviation hub for the broader region. If Nadi is closed, the cascading logistics implications reach every island in the region that depends on Fiji for its connection to the rest of the world. The Fijian government has already indicated they are working to redirect essential aviation to Nausori Airport near Suva, which is less exposed and remains operational. But Nausori has limitations. This is a country doing extraordinary things under extraordinary pressure.
We have direct communication now from the New Zealand Defence Force, which has committed the following assets to the regional response. 2 RNZA-FC-130H Hercules aircraft for logistics and humanitarian supply, an additional P-3 Orion for reconnaissance, the HMNZS Canterbury amphibious vessel, which is being prepared for departure from Auckland within the next 4 to 6 hours, and a forward deployed team from the New Zealand Defence Force's Humanitarian Assistance and Disasters Relief Unit. Australia has committed parallel assets. 2 RAAF C-17 Globemaster aircraft, HMAS Adelaide for amphibious operations, and a deployable civilian emergency management team from the Australian government's International Assistance Response. France, which has territories in the Pacific, specifically New Caledonia and French Polynesia, has also committed 2 patrol vessels and a logistics aircraft from their Pacific fleet. The United States has activated PACOM, Pacific Command, alert status, and is pre-positioning assets in Hawaii. The international response is mobilizing, and it is doing so at a pace consistent with the gravity of the event. But I want to be honest about the limiting factor. Getting to the affected islands in the Central Pacific takes time even at military speed, and the most critical window for life-saving is now, not in 12 hours.
I want to spend a moment on what's happening on the ground in terms of human behavior, because in disasters, human behavior is never simple. Our Auckland correspondent is relaying accounts from survivors and witnesses who have made it to communication. In Nuku'alofa, Tonga's capital, which was affected by significant wave activity, but survived largely intact due to its somewhat protected position on the southern coast of Tongatapu, the largest island, in Nuku'alofa. There are accounts of extraordinary courage. Local fishermen who know these waters, who knew something was coming before the sirens, who went door to door in their neighborhoods. A school teacher who gathered children on the playground and led them single file up a hill behind the school. A hotel worker who carried an elderly tourist on his back when she could not walk quickly enough. These are not official acts of heroism. They are the private kind. The kind that happen in the dark without cameras because someone decided in a fraction of a second that this other human being mattered more than their own fear. I want those people named, even without names. We see them.
We have received the first official statement from the government of Tonga, read by the acting Prime Minister, as the Prime Minister is currently unreachable on one of the northern islands. I'll read it in full. Quote, "The Kingdom of Tonga has suffered a catastrophic event. Our northern islands have experienced devastation on a scale that is without modern precedent in our history. We mourn our dead. We are searching for our missing. We ask the world for assistance without hesitation and without shame, because what has happened to us is beyond the capacity of any small island nation to manage alone. We will provide further information as we are able. Our people are strong. We will face this together." End quote. That is a remarkable statement for its directness and its emotional honesty. An acting Prime Minister saying, "We ask for help without shame." That is a leader communicating clearly to the international community that the standard diplomatic protocols for requesting assistance are suspended and that speed is everything.
The acting Prime Minister of Tonga. An acting Prime Minister because the actual Prime Minister is unreachable on one of the northern islands. That detail stopped me when Alex read it. We have a nation's leader potentially in the middle of the disaster zone, unreachable. We have an acting leader speaking for a government that is itself in crisis, managing an unfolding catastrophe with satellite phones and whatever communication still works. I keep thinking about the weight of that moment. Stepping to a microphone in the middle of a catastrophe and speaking for a country. Finding the right words when the right words don't exist. We will face this together. That's all there is sometimes. Those 6 words.
3 hours and 14 minutes. Significant developments. We have updated casualty figures from Fiji. The Fiji NDMO is now reporting 2,300 confirmed dead, with an estimated additional 8,000 missing. The missing figure in a tsunami context is almost always a proxy for additional fatalities that haven't yet been recovered or confirmed. Northern Vanuatu bore the heaviest impact in Fiji, with coastal settlements in the Makuata province described by aerial survey as, and I'm quoting from the NDMO report, predominantly destroyed. Makuata province has a population of approximately 90,000. The tsunami has also caused significant damage to Fiji's sugar industry infrastructure. The northern cane fields and processing infrastructure are heavily affected, which will have long-term economic consequences that compound the immediate humanitarian crisis. Lautoka, Fiji's second city and a major port, has experienced significant wave damage along its waterfront. The port is currently non-operational. Without Lautoka Port and without Nadi Airport, the western side of Viti Levu is functionally isolated from large-scale external resupply by the most direct routes.
We have a message, a text message, from a nurse working at Colonial War Memorial Hospital in Suva. She writes, "We have been receiving casualties since about 2 hours ago. We are full. Every bed is full. We have patients on the floor, in the corridors. We are doing triage constantly. We are out of O-negative blood. We are running low on suture material. The surgical team has not stopped working. I've been on shift for 19 hours. I am not complaining, but someone needs to know we need blood and supplies immediately." That message is from someone who is doing the work, not requesting help in an abstract sense, telling us specifically what is needed: O-negative blood and suture material. We have passed that message to the international assistance coordination channels that are monitoring our broadcast. It has also been sent to the New Zealand Red Cross and the Fiji Red Cross, who we understand are already in coordination. If you are a healthcare professional or a logistics provider who can respond to that specific need, O-negative blood, suture material, Suva, Fiji, please contact the relevant National Red Cross organizations immediately.
I want to return to the matter of Marcus, our survivor of Meridian Pacific Flight 7, because we have received a brief, relayed summary of his initial debriefing testimony to RNZAF investigators. I want to be clear, this is not a verbatim transcript. This is a summary provided by the RCCNZ communications team of the substantive content of his initial statement, which was given while he was still receiving medical care. Marcus is a New Zealand national, 34 years of age, a structural engineer who was traveling to Fiji for a professional consultation. He was seated in a window seat over the left wing. His account, in summary form, describes the following sequence. The aircraft was in normal cruise at approximately 35,000 feet. He describes feeling the aircraft begin to shake, not the normal turbulence he'd experienced before, but something he describes as a resonance, like the air itself was vibrating. This shaking lasted approximately 30 seconds. Then, he says, there was what he perceived as a sudden change in external light, a brightening through the window, followed immediately by a shock that he can only describe as the aircraft being pushed upward violently and then released. The aircraft then entered what he believes was a structural break. He recalls the interior changing shape around him, and then he was in the water. He does not recall the impact with the water. He was wearing his seatbelt. He believes the seatbelt both kept him with a section of the aircraft and caused his leg injuries.
The account Marcus has given, the resonance in the air, the light change, the violent upward force, is consistent, Alex, with what you described earlier. A pressure wave from a large submarine event propagating through the water and into the lower atmosphere and reaching altitude. The eruption or the seismic rupture that we now know occurred would have produced exactly the kind of atmospheric wave he's describing. If the timing correlates, and investigators will establish that, then Flight 7 may have been directly above or near the epicentral zone at the moment of the event. At 35,000 feet, the aircraft would have been above most of the weather, but it would not have been above a sufficiently large atmospheric pressure wave. Marcus survived because he was belted in and because a piece of the aircraft held together long enough for him to be found. 280-some passengers and crew are unaccounted for. The structural engineer's professional understanding of the world turned out to be exactly the lens through which he perceived his own disaster. He described the aircraft changing shape around him. A structural engineer noticing the shape of a structure failing. There is something both terrible and profound in that.
We have now crossed the 4-hour mark of coverage. I want to give our listeners the clearest picture we can construct of where we stand at this moment, because as the coverage continues, the picture is becoming simultaneously larger and grimmer, and I believe our listeners deserve honest clarity rather than managed uncertainty. At 4 hours, confirmed dead across the affected Pacific region stands at a number that official sources are now expressing with uncomfortable imprecision. The range being cited by the Regional Emergency Coordination Center in Suva is between 4,000 and 9,000 confirmed fatalities, with the range reflecting the difference between what has been counted and what has been assessed from aerial surveillance as structural destruction of inhabited areas. That range will narrow in the coming hours as ground assessment teams reach areas currently inaccessible. The missing figure, which, as I said, is a euphemism in context, exceeds 15,000 across Tonga and Fiji combined. The island of Tafahi, population approximately 400, has not been reached by any communication or reconnaissance asset. A Cook Islands-based maritime patrol aircraft passed over Tafahi's coordinates 40 minutes ago and reported, I am reading from the pilot's radio transmission, reported seeing open water and exposed reef where the northern residential area of the island should be. Tafahi sits on a low coastal plain extending from its central volcanic peak. The open water and exposed reef where homes were is consistent with either total inundation or with what the USGS assessment flagged: subsidence, the land going down.
Open water where houses were. I keep returning to that phrase. There is a way in which language at a certain scale of loss becomes inadequate. We don't have good words for this. We have coordinates and we have silence. And we have the knowledge that 400 people live there. 400 people who woke up yesterday morning and made breakfast and argued with their children about getting ready and planned ordinary things. And now there is open water and exposed reef. I am not going to pretend that's not what it is. It is possibly the loss of an entire small island community. We don't know that with certainty yet. But the absence of communication and the pilot's observation force us to sit with the possibility. And I think sitting with that possibility, not flinching from it, is something we owe those 400 people.
Additional updates. New Zealand's coastal wave monitoring has recorded arrival of tsunami waves along the northland coast of the North Island, reaching measured heights of between 0.6 and 1.4 meters. These are significant enough to have caused disruption to coastal marinas, minor flooding of low-lying coastal roads, and some property damage, but they are not life-threatening if appropriate precautions have been taken. Northland Civil Defense has issued instructions for residents to stay back from the coast. The waves along the New Zealand coast are what oceanographers call distal impacts, far from the source, diminished in energy, though still capable of causing localized surges in harbors and estuaries due to resonance effects. Australia's east coast, particularly Queensland, has received a tsunami advisory, one level below a watch, for its northern coastal regions. Wave arrival in Queensland is expected within the next 90 minutes. We are also monitoring for impacts on Hawaii, which is currently under a tsunami warning from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center for the first time since 2011. Hawaii's wave arrival is estimated at 4 hours from now.
I want to bring in something that has been developing quietly on the political level while the disaster has been unfolding. We are hearing from our diplomatic correspondent that an emergency session of the Pacific Islands Forum is being requested by member states. The Pacific Islands Forum is the primary intergovernmental body for the Pacific region. Its member states include Australia, New Zealand, and 16 Pacific Island nations, including Tonga, Fiji, Samoa, and the Cook Islands. An emergency session of this body would allow for coordinated international response within a multilateral framework, essentially formalizing and organizing what is currently a somewhat ad hoc collection of bilateral responses. We are also hearing that the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has formally activated its humanitarian emergency response mechanism, which mobilizes UN-coordinated international assistance. That's a significant institutional threshold. The UN doesn't activate this mechanism casually. It is a recognition that what's happening in the Pacific is a humanitarian emergency of international magnitude.
I am going to report now on the fate of Meridian Pacific Flight 7 with a degree of finality that I've been cautious to approach during the broadcast, because I wanted to wait for investigator confirmation. The Transport Accident Investigation Commission of New Zealand has issued a preliminary finding summary. I will read the relevant conclusion. Quote, based on the testimony of the sole confirmed survivor, analysis of recovered wreckage, correlated seismic and atmospheric data from the relevant geographic and temporal window, and consultation with geophysical and aviation technical experts, the Commission's preliminary view is that Meridian Pacific Flight 7 experienced rapid structural failure consistent with extreme atmospheric overpressure associated with a large-scale geophysical event. The timing and position of the aircraft placed it within the direct propagation path of an atmospheric pressure wave generated by the submarine volcanic seismic compound rupture event, identified by the USGS. This is a causal pathway without direct modern precedent in commercial aviation. The investigation will continue. End quote. Without direct modern precedent. One aircraft in the wrong place, at the wrong altitude, above one of the most catastrophic geological events in recent Pacific history.
No direct modern precedent. That phrase will be in every aviation safety report and every geophysics conference paper for the next decade. And it will be preceded by a list of the names on that flight manifest, which has now been released by Meridian Pacific. There were 261 passengers and 11 crew members on board, 272 people total. The names are from New Zealand, Australia, Fiji, Japan, the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, and Germany. They range in age from 11 months old, a baby, to 81 years old. 272 people. One survived. Marcus, the structural engineer who felt the shape of the world changing and is now in a hospital bed on a naval vessel in the South Pacific. And 271 names that will be read at a memorial that hasn't happened yet and in homes that don't know yet and by a baby's parents who are on that list.
As we move past the 4-hour mark and prepare to hand coverage to our evening team, I want to give our listeners the final accounting of what we know tonight. The compound seismic volcanic rupture event along the Tonga-Kermadec Arc has been assigned a final moment magnitude of 8.7 by the USGS, revised slightly downward from the peak estimate of 8.6 in the other direction, though the distinction is minimal at that scale. The total confirmed dead across Tonga, Fiji, Samoa, and Niue stands at 12,417 as of the most recent emergency coordination bulletin. That number will rise. Investigators and emergency officials are privately expressing concern that the final toll may reach between 50,000 and 80,000, based on population exposure, structural destruction surveys, and the status of communities that remain uncontacted. I want to say that number plainly. Between 50,000 and 80,000 human beings. The island of Tafahi has been formally listed as status unknown, presumed mass casualty. Its entire population of approximately 400 is unaccounted for. The Ha'apai group's effective population, approximately 11,000 people, is estimated by Tongan officials to have suffered a casualty rate exceeding 60% in the northern atolls. The most severely affected low-lying atolls in Ha'apai's Nomuka group are being described by aerial survey as partially submerged, with ongoing tidal inundation making assessment difficult.
There is a question that will be asked in the weeks and months to come, and I want to ask it now because I think it is the honest question. Was this survivable? Not the disaster itself. Disasters of nature are beyond prevention. But the human cost. Could faster warning systems have moved more people to higher ground? Could different land use planning in atoll communities have ensured fewer people lived in 0-meter elevation zones? Could the International Aviation System have had protocols to route aircraft away from a zone where anomalous geophysical activity was being reported? These are the questions that follow catastrophe. They are not questions of blame. They are questions of how we do better for next time, because in the Pacific, seismically, volcanically, geologically, there is always a next time. The people of Tonga have known this longer than any of us broadcasting from our studios. They have built culture and memory and resilience around exactly this knowledge. The question is whether the modern systems built around them have caught up with what they already know.
Meridian Pacific has ceased operations. The airline announced, in a statement released 15 minutes ago, that it is suspending all operations indefinitely. A company with one aircraft involved in a catastrophic loss. The legal, financial, and reputational consequences of what happened are the end of that company in any practical sense. 271 passengers and crew. The survivor, Marcus, is expected to make a full physical recovery from his injuries, which include bilateral lower leg fractures, hypothermia, and a punctured lung. He will carry this for the rest of his life in every sense of that phrase. He will be the only person who ever knows what it felt like to survive that particular moment in the sky above the Pacific on that day. Investigators will want that knowledge. Psychologists will engage with what carrying that knowledge means. And he will speak about it or he will not, when he is ready or never. And both choices are his alone.
When I think about how to end 4 hours of this, not end the story, which hasn't ended, but end our portion of the coverage, I keep coming back to the listener who wrote about her cousins in Tonga. The one who said, "I'm sitting here shaking. Please don't stop broadcasting." We don't know if her cousins are safe. We don't know if the woman from Nuku'alofa who was loading her children into the car made it. We don't know what happened to the people in that 43-second recording. We do know that somewhere in what remains of the Ha'apai Islands, on rooftops and hilltops, there are people who were found tonight by search teams working in the dark with flashlights. We know that in Suva, the nurses have not stopped. We know that in Lautoka, people are helping strangers. We know that on a naval vessel in the South Pacific, a 34-year-old man named Marcus is breathing. We know that the world heard the acting Prime Minister of Tonga say, "We will face this together," and the world answered in the imperfect and inadequate and nonetheless real way that it does. Yes, we're coming.
The final count, as it will be recorded in the historical record of this event. 847,000 people were displaced from their homes across Tonga, Fiji, Samoa, Niue, and the Cook Islands. Of those, 64,212 people died. The confirmed final figure, released 6 weeks after the event by the joint UN Pacific Islands Forum Assessment Team. That number includes the 271 victims of Meridian Pacific Flight 7. The island of Tafahi was entirely lost, claimed by the combination of inundation and the subsidence of its coastal platform. The outer northern atolls of Ha'apai, 11 islands in total, were declared permanently uninhabitable due to a combination of structural destruction and irreversible land level changes associated with the seismic event. Tonga's northern island group is diminished as a consequence, not metaphorically, but geographically, smaller by islands than it was before this day. Fiji's northern province of Makuata required 5 years of sustained international reconstruction assistance. It recovered imperfectly, with new building codes and new topographic rules about construction below 3 meters of elevation. The world changed, specifically in the Pacific, on this day, and the world also held. The nurses in Suva did not stop. The fishermen of the Cook Islands brought Marcus out of the water. The hillsides of Vavahu were full of people who ran in time. 64,212 people did not survive, and 1 million people who were in the path of this event did. Both of those numbers are true at the same time, and living inside that truth is the work that comes after.
You have been listening to Silent Waves Radio's live coverage of the compound seismic and tsunami event in the South Pacific and the disappearance of Meridian Pacific Flight 7. Alex Mercer and I will return at midnight for our next coverage update. Our thoughts are with every family waiting for news tonight, and with every person in the Pacific who is building a fire or filling a water container or sitting in the dark, waiting for morning. You are not alone. You are being heard, even in the silence, especially in the silence.
This is Alex Mercer for Silent Waves Radio. Stay close.